Welcome, everyone, to the MMA Happy Hour podcast. I am Kyle Anthony, your host for today. We are talking UFC Vegas 119, headlined by Manel Kape and Kyoji Horiguchi. We're going to be breaking down 4 plays here on the show today. Now, this week, I've got a 4% play locked in. Over the last 2 months, my 4% money line plays are hitting at a 75% clip. Feeling great about this play for this weekend, so link down in the description if you want to become a client. And with that being said, let's dive into the main event of the evening between Manel Kape and Kyoji Horiguchi. Now, you've got Kape sitting at minus 162 in the comeback here. We've got Horiguchi plus 136. Now, the winner of this fight probably will be fighting for a title against Joshua Van very soon here, where, you know, especially if there was a knockout and a really, really decisive win, absolutely puts them right there for a title shot. Now, you got Kape, who's definitely building momentum here on a 7-1 run in the UFC, has had really nice performances overall. His only loss came against Muhammad Mokaev, who might be one of the best fighters in the division that aren't in the UFC. I mean, definitely an elite level guy, 16-0, high level wrestling. And he went out there, and I thought still that, you know, Kape fought well. You know, I thought that Kape looked not too bad, you know, really had to really perform on his takedown defense. It was 30-20 on significant strikes. You did have Mokaev was 3 for 8 on takedowns with 2 minutes of control time. So still, I thought it was competitive. You know, clearly Kape lost the fight, but it was a competitive scrap overall, and he had to defend all those takedowns. Now, overall, you look at Kape, he is just an elite level striker. This guy's got incredibly fast hands, big time power, as well as good distance management and very light on his feet, and really offers up a dynamic striking arsenal. What you've got on the other side here, you've got Horiguchi here, who was a well-rounded fighter who is on a 2-0 run since entering the UFC again. He did have a stint in the UFC, which he was cut back in 2016. He went 7-1 in the UFC. Only loss was to Demetrius Johnson. And now he's back. You know, did well in Rise and did well in Bellator. But the question here is, can Horiguchi get his wrestling going? You know, can he really push that kind of pace, get the wrestling going? You know, does he want to stand and strike for 5 rounds against Kape? Probably not. And I think the biggest issue here, and why I don't think he's going to get Kape down, is Kape's footwork. You know, Kape is just so light-footed. He's so fast, offers up such dynamic striking on the feet. I just think very difficult for Horiguchi to kind of get in front of Kape, get those takedowns, push that kind of wrestling pace. I think he's going to struggle with it. While Horiguchi has had some wins, and even the wins that he has had in the UFC, you know, are really fighters that are perfect stylistic matchups for Horiguchi, where they're limited striking, don't really have much striking in their arsenal with wrestling. And that fits up perfectly with Horiguchi, who is going to be the better striker against any of those guys. And then as well have that defensive wrestling to dictate the pace, get his own wrestling going. And they're not able to implement their game plan. You know, Ulanbekov, Albazi, these are guys that, you know, don't have striking, but can look to wrestle. And if they got their opponent that has wrestling, they're not going to find success. And combined between those guys, we're 1-8 on takedowns. And I think Kape is a different animal here. I mean, I think he's a completely different animal, offers multiple advantages here, and as well as he's just far more, you know, threat, where you've got a guy that is the far more harder hitter between these two in Kape. Also, the fact he's got faster developing combinations. Out of his last 8 fights, he has recorded 7 knockdowns. So even in fights that he has had decision victories, he has hurt his opponent. He has dropped his opponent. I do think that's going to happen multiple times here, where Horiguchi is going to be there to be hit. And Horiguchi, a lot of times, you know, throws these big looping hooks. You know, he's trying to get into range, throw big looping hooks. If he can't get it, he'll look for a takedown. But you've got a 5-inch reach advantage here for Kape. You've got a guy who can fight very well behind his jab, you know, very good distance management, great counter striking ability. And I'm not really sure where Horiguchi finds success outside of looking for takedowns and really smothering with that pressure. And I don't think that's going to happen here. You've got Kape that has an 81% takedown defense rate. I think that holds up here. You've even seen it against very, you know, good wrestlers. Asu Alabayev was a very good wrestler. He was 0 for 6 on takedowns against Kape. And then also you've got Mokaev, who was 3 for 8 on takedowns with 2 minutes of control time. So, you know, these guys are better wrestlers, in my opinion, than Horiguchi. And that's why I think this fight does play out on the feet. And I do think Kape finds finds the success, outlands him, pushes that kind of pace where he's just going to over volume him and probably get a late knockout. But either way, I do like Manel Kape to get the job done at -162. And there you have it. And the next fight here we're going to talk about is going to be Navajo Stirling. He is -350 on the comeback here. We've got Ian Cutelaba. He is +255. Now you've got Navajo here, who is a really high-level striker who comes from CKB. Now, what we do know about that camp is they really breed high-level strikers who have fantastic takedown defense, and that's really what they're looking to do here with Navajo Stirling. But Navajo overall is a long, rangy striker, fast-developing combinations, good kicking arsenal as well. He can mix that in, very dynamic striking as well, and he's got a nice jab, so he can really mix up things a lot, have that takedown defense to keep this fight on the feet, and I think that's kind of how most of his fights can play out, and possibly this one here, where on the other side here, you've got Ian Cutelaba here, who is a very aggressive fighter, especially outside, or not outside, but especially early in the fight. He's going to come forward. He's going to bulldoze. He's going to look for get that wrestling going, body slam his opponents, drag them to the ground, and really push a heavy pace very early. He averages 4 takedowns per 15 minutes. So we know we're going to be getting back, and that's really where could there be problems? Again, Navajo, a little bit more of a raw fighter here, but we're seeing him get better. Can he defend that kind of arsenal early in this fight here? But overall, Cutelaba is really a journeyman fighter. He's traded wins and losses for a while. He's 9-10-1, in the UFC, and it's just really a journeyman fighter, a guy who's not really beating any high-level guys, but can be competitive, against a certain level. But the biggest issue here on the Cutelaba side is going to be his bad cardio. I mean, there is no doubt about it. His cardio has never been good, and that's been a weakness for him because he can't keep that kind of explosiveness going throughout the fight. He's extremely explosive early and very dangerous early, but can slow down as this fight goes on. And outside, really, of that first round and a half, I don't really see where he finds success against such a high-level striker, in Navajo Stirling. I don't think that Cutelaba can really push, 3 hard rounds, and he throws everything with 100% power and not economical with his striking, with his cardio. I don't think if he can't overwhelm, Navajo early in this fight, I just don't see where he's going to find success. Well, Navajo, when he came to the UFC, was inexperienced. So had 4 fights, was kind of still trying to figure it out, trying to, really put it all together. Now I think we're seeing him elevate. We're seeing that he has really a strong skill set overall. And in this fight here, he's going to have a 4-inch reach advantage. He's going to have 4-inch height advantage. He's going to have he's big guy for this division. And Stirling here, is a guy that's not aggressive early. If the fight does happen and fight kind of plays out and he hurts his opponent, he's going to hunt for it. In the regional scene, he has knocked out guys early, finished guys early. But since he's been in the UFC, over his 4 wins, 3 of them are by decision. And that's kind of where I go with this, because he's not going to take risks. He can be patient here. Listen, there's no doubt he can knock out Cutelaba early in this fight, but I think that the first round is going to be somewhat competitive. I think he's going to play a little bit more on the defensive side just because of how dangerous and explosive Cutelaba is. But then when it gets to that second round, into that third round, especially that third round, I think is where Cutelaba really can start to slow down. And I think that's where Navajo can really step on the gas and look to get the finish or win by points. And that's where I'm going with this here, is that I do believe that Stirling gets the job done, but I am taking Stirling to win in round 3 or by decision, and that's sitting at +145. I like that number here. I think that's a strong number for a guy that I think is going to struggle early, or maybe not struggle, but really not be able to implement his game plan. Once Cutelaba slows down, I think that third round finish is available or win on the judges' scorecards. So give me Navajo Stirling to win by round 3 or decision at +145. And the next one here we're going to talk about is going to be Vinicius Oliveira. He is -285 on the comeback here. We've got Andre Fili. He is +230. Now, you've got Vinicius here, who is moving up a weight class. And the thing about that he's moving up a weight class is, it's going to be interesting to see kind of how his body is here, because he was at 135 and that was a situation really where, he just couldn't make the weight. He was struggling making the weight, and that's a problem for him, where now he said, hey, I'm going up a weight class. Let me see how this kind of plays out due to his weight. Now, what we're getting from him is a very aggressive fighter. He's going to come forward. He's going to be marching forward. He's going to be throwing very hard. And he's a guy that also, is going to look to push the pace. He does not have the best cardio, but he is going to look to push that pace, no doubt. And it's going to be interesting to see, if he's able to implement that type of game plan. Where you've got Fili on the other side here, who is a longtime UFC vet. This guy has definitely been around for many, many years. He's coming in on short notice. So that side of it is, what shape is he going to be in? Now, we fought about, I think it was 4 months ago or something like that. He's a veteran. I don't really think he's going to come in bad shape to begin with here. But overall, he's a well-rounded fighter, and he is very technical, has good boxing, and can mix in takedowns. And that's something where he has found success, where he's able to go out there and start to push that wrestling pace. It's something he hadn't really gone to. But over his last 4 fights, he has landed 10 takedowns. Now, the 7 fights prior to that run, he landed just 2 takedowns. So it is something he's added in. It's something where he can start to, mix it up, dictate the pace a little bit. And I think it has helped him. He has, lost some fights in there, but I think it has helped him mix in that and kind of give different looks here. But I do believe, especially in this fight, wrestling and takedowns is his path to victory here. I think he has to get this done. Early Vinicius is going to be dangerous, explosive. But I think, we've seen lower or smaller guys, I really should say, in the lower weight class take Vinicius down. And that can be now we're in the bigger weight class. Obviously, Vinicius is gaining weight as well. But a bigger guys, could they really find success? And I think they can do it, because I think that early, I think, we're going to see there's opportunities here, I think, for Fili to get a takedown, control the action, leverage his size, and start to really utilize those things, because he's also going to have the better cardio here than Vinicius. We know Vinicius is very weak, can slow down outside of the first round and a half. And I think the wrestling is perfect scenario here to just slow down Vinicius. And we've seen it work even against, in his most recent fight against Mario Batista. Batista, high-level guy, there's no doubt. But against Mario Batista was 5 for 7 on takedowns and ended up getting the submission in that second round. And that's kind of how I see this playing out, where I think the takedowns are going to be very alive here. Just even if he doesn't get them, keep Vinicius working, push him up against the fence, keep him working, drain him, and then as this fight progresses, really start to pick him apart. Because striking-wise, Fili's the far more polished striker, in my opinion. He's got great 1-2 combinations down the middle. A lot of times you got Vinicius, got his hands low, very hittable, bad striking defense, big looping hooks. He's kind of this awkward style, but these big looping hooks. And I just think that the boxing of Fili and the experience that he has had, I think he's going to be able to handle those shots. I think he can mix in the takedowns. Plus, he's going to have a 4-inch reach advantage here. So I do like Andre Fili here. I think he can win this fight outright here, but I'm going point spread bet here. I'm going Andre Fili plus 3.5, which is at plus 120. I like that number here. We're still getting plus money here. He just needs to win a round and survive. But again, I still think there's opportunity for him to just win this fight outright. So you're going to give me a round still at plus money? Give me Andre Fili plus 3.5 at plus 120. And the last one here we're going to talk about is going to be Karol Rosa. She is our Hosa. She is minus 120 on the comeback here. We have Luana Santos. She is plus 100. Now, you look at this fight here, and you've got Santos. You've got Hosa that, was a minus, 160-ish at certain books, and the money has come in on Santos. So will be interesting to see kind of how that all plays out. But when you look at this fight here, primarily, it's a grappler versus striker type of matchup here, where you've got, whoever really implements their game plan here is going to find success. You've got Santos, who is going to look for takedowns, look to get the grappling going, has a submission game, and wants to find opportunities to drag this to the ground. And if it gets to the ground, she's going to find opportunities, to really, to have her submission game going, because on the feet, she is not very good. Very poor striking overall, basic combinations, doesn't really, just has struggles on the feet. And that's where I think Hosa, who is a Muay Thai striker, has better striking overall, good in the clinch, can utilize some of that Muay Thai, dirty boxing, elbows, knees to the body, mix it up a little bit and really pressure her. And that's where I think Santos, she can do that to her. I think she's going to be able to do that there because of, I think Rosa's going to have the physicality advantage. She's going to have the strength advantage as well. And I think it's going to keep Santos on that back foot, struggling to really kind of get her offense going. And when you're on that back foot, going to be very tough to look for takedowns. I think that's where Rosa can kind of push forward and push the volume, because I think that's going to be a big advantage for her, is that the volume. I think that Santos is going to struggle cutting distance, getting in the face of her, looking for those takedowns. Rosa has that volume. She can push that kind of pace here and leverage her, and then they experience, because she just has more experience in the cage. And I'm not really that high on Santos here. I think she's got, a good foundation, but I think she's still growing. She's 26 years old. I think she's only going to get better here, but I think it's a tough spot for her against a more experienced fighter here who has the takedown defense of 70%, can keep this fight standing here. And I think that's where the fight will be won, is keeping this on the feet for Rosa and getting the job done. So we're getting a little bit of a discount here, but give me Karol Rosa to get the job done at -120. So there you have it for my plays for UFC Vegas 119. If you want to become a client, link down in the description. I've got a 4% play up right now, where over the last 2 months, my 4% money line plays are hitting at a 75% rate. So I've got that in right now. We'll be adding to that as we get closer to fight night. So I'll see you next week. Let's get the job done and let's cash.